So we're here talking with Jeff Hurt. Jeff is the Executive Vice President of Velvet Chainsaw and does a tremendous amount of work in the event space and helping companies and associations, a lot of associations that you work with, do a better job at producing their meetings and driving education and relationships and networking around that. So I wanted to just talk with you a little bit about some of the trends that you're seeing out there and some of the challenges that people are trying to work through and what's working and what's not.
Okay. I think a trend that we're seeing a lot of right now is organizations being more agile and learning to change and adapt quickly for their attendees at an event, and sometimes that means making changes on site at the event.
Okay.
And if a speaker isn't working, particularly a general session speaker, interrupting them. And figuring out another strategy to keep the speaker on stage, get the content out there, but actually engage the audience.
Yeah.
So seeing a trend in that, and then also people changing things up, and they're deciding to make major changes a month before the event happens in the attendees experience, which leads me to point number 2. And a big trend that we're seeing is a lot more focus on the attendees experience. For years, the old meeting model was, we just plan it, get the information out there, they'll come. And the perfect storm of experts online, information online, and the fact that many organizations, their own members or customers are now their competitors, right, with giving out event experiences or information. They have had to find new ways to focus on that attendee experience and make it better. So those are really two. The increased demand on attendee experience sounds logical that we would have always been doing, but we've put most of our emphasis on the logistics side,
right,
and not the experience side.
Right.
So it's shifting now.
So from a technology standpoint, from the digital aspect of that, what are you seeing out there, either from a technology standpoint or techniques that people are using to help drive home and make those events more successful and more agile?
Sure. I think something that's probably near to you as well, being a VEI, is that the digital event, the digital experience, the hybrid experience, the meeting professionals, the conference organizers really have to see that there's not just one audience. There are 2 audiences. I actually say there's 3 audiences, because there's the face-to-face audience, there's the remote audience, and there's the click-by that I say, or the social media drive-by, who sees something that's coming from that event experience and starts searching for more information. And they may not know where to get a live stream of that experience, but they're following somebody else's tweets or blog posts or live blogs. So we're seeing an increase in that, and also that people are really having to watch live streaming, so that it's not just we're peeking into this experience and there's no engagement for the remote attendees. There's an increased emphasis, as you know, on making sure that that remote attendee experience is valuable and that attendees are engaged.
Yeah. So that's, one of the things that I think a lot of events struggle with, a lot of meetings struggle with, and that is that line between serving the physical attendees and the virtual attendees. And for a long time, I think we saw that, hey, just putting a camera in there, streaming content, that was good enough, and then we added some, Twitter feeds and some, a little bit more interactivity. But what is the line, that you see out there, that we either need to cross or we shouldn't cross in terms of serving both of those audiences and doing it at the same time?
Well, it needs to be a seamless experience, and you don't want to fault the face-to-face people with what's happening so that it interrupts their experience. And you don't want the remote attendee just to be watching. If you watch some of the morning talk shows that are on TV or some of the evening talk shows, there is now this integration with social. That's a very natural process where they may be talking to audience members who are there face-to-face for the experience, but they're also taking questions or comments through Twitter or Facebook or a phone line, and there's just this seamless integration. And so it's really about realizing that the face-to-face experience being shoved through the camera doesn't work for the remote attendee. And the easiest thing to do is find speakers that are comfortable with dealing with those audiences at the same time and know how to get the face-to-face audience engaged, give them something to do to talk about, turn down that house sound so they can't hear it, and then they go talk to the remote audience. So that the remote, and the face-to-face audience never knows about it, but the remote audience actually gets something special that's for them.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what's got to happen, or you lose that remote audience.
Yeah. So I've seen you do that quite a bit, and of course, I think every time I've seen you do it, I've been in the physical audience, so I've been kind of watching what you're doing there and whatnot. But I didn't really have the experience from the online attendee, and I'm wondering how do you, when you're doing that, or when you're speaking in general, you know, many people are cognizant of Twitter and you know, chats that might be coming in if they're using some other kind of platform. And they call out, you know, we have some questions from our, you know, our online audience and whatnot. But what do you do beyond that to really make them feel like they're engaged?
You know, I think the most important piece is at the very beginning of the meeting. You acknowledge your face-to-face audience. It's something to do with your body language. You look at them, and it has to be an acknowledgement of that remote audience. And that's a simple thing, but it makes the remote audience feel good. And what I often will do is have the face-to-face audience greet the remote audience. I'll have them say hi to them or welcome to whatever we are. And that makes the remote audience, again, feel part of it. I always design questions for discussion because it's good for learning in my presentations. And that's where I spend time with the remote audience. I'll say there's three things I think people should do to make sure that remote audience is also engaged. And one of them is to make sure there's the greeting and the acknowledgement of the audience. I'll have the face-to-face audience say hi to the remote audience as well, and you have to do the official hi from the stage. I think the second piece is you've got to find somebody in the audience or a staff person who's actually going to follow the conversation online. You have to have text enabled so that they can chat to one another, whether it's through Twitter or it's some proprietary piece of software that goes with the live streaming. You've got to have that. And if there's nobody there that's on staff that's willing to do it, I just recruit a volunteer from the audience. And then I make that person part of my presentation, actually. And I will move them closer to me up on stage, and I will tell the camera guy that when the audience is discussing, turn down the house sound, leave the sound up to the remote audience. I'll go down and talk with that person, and then we'll talk to the remote audience. So I think that's a critical piece. And then I think the third piece is, when you're debriefing with the face-to-face audience, Q&A, you debrief with the remote audience too. You pull in what the remote audience has been talking to for the face-to-face audience to hear, so that they can go back and see the text chat that's been archived and get more input as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of technology, what have, you know, a couple technologies out there recently that you've started to watch or work with during your presentations? Anything interesting? Yeah,
there's a software, and you have to buy it, that I've been using recently that I actually like. That's called joinspeaker.com. And what I do when I'm presenting, I'm on stage, I'm carrying my iPad, and I actually give the audience, they can go from their mobile devices to a website, and they find my name and click on it, and they can send me Q&A directly through this website. It pops up on my iPad, and I can moderate it. I get a column to moderate and move it over, and then through the LCD projector, I have my computer there as well, and I just go to the website, and it shows those questions that I've moved over to approved for the audience to then vote on or rate.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, and it's really a kind of cool tool, because I'm walking around with my iPad, and they see me doing this. They actually think that I'm swiping it to the screen.
Yeah,
But I'm
magic.
not, right? Magic. So that's one that I really think for audience engagement has been an interesting tool to use that people really like.
Now, can they, how do they, in the audience, how do they interact with that? Through their mobile device, obviously?
Through their mobile device. I give them, I will say, go to joinspeaker.com/Jeff. And when they go there, it will pull up the page for them that says, type in your question or comment. And then they type it in, and then once I approve it, it shows up on their screen that they can vote on it. They can give it a thumbs up or thumbs down or rate it.
No, that's great.
So, and this is all in real time, but it has that moderation piece that some people are more comfortable with. And I've done it in some cases where the entire audience is suddenly sending me questions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it increases that engagement. So.
Yeah, yeah, good. Any others that?
You would ask me that.
Well, there's one. I don't know if you've seen this one, but or used this one. I'm sure you have. But Poll Everywhere.
I've used Poll Everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, and that one to me, you know, I've tried it a couple times. Worked once. It didn't work so well. You know, another time, and I don't know if it was the audience and they just didn't really know how to text and handle that device. But that seems like a great tool to be able to connect the virtual audience and the physical audience, because you can throw that slide up there and people can vote in the in the physical event. Sure. and the online people can do the same thing. And
I can't think of another one.
Yeah.
Some of the mobile apps this summer in July, they're rolling out the new additions in their applications. And what I've seen a couple of apps that have this. They have a note-taking capability in the app. So if you're in session X, you take notes for session X. Then you can decide to share those notes with all the attendees. Or you can click a button and share those with all of your friends everywhere. So, and then it will combine anybody else who's taking notes that's given permission for session X together.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So a great tool that's available for tablets and.
And what's that called again?
Well, some of the mobile apps, conference mobile
Okay.
apps,
Yeah.
Crowd Compass has it. I believe Quick Mobile has it. They're rolling them out this summer.
Okay.
And just a nice little add-on feature that I think will pick up.
Yeah. So one of the conversations that I've heard a couple times at this conference and at some others as well is, just yesterday I was talking to a couple of folks, one who was in the hotel industry, and I forget what the other one was, but they were just very concerned about the future of meetings and events, and they just feel like this is all going to go digital, and what's going to happen to the hotels, and I thought that was kind of interesting, because I would say to them that I actually think that what a lot of this technology is doing is making the case for more meetings and events, because you can get more out of them. But what's your view on the future?
My view on the future is that our online life is catching up with our face-to-face life, so that the merging and the blending of the two. I firmly believe that online leads to face-to-face. Mm-hmm. That if I'm building relationships online with people, I eventually want to see them face-to-face. I want that face-to-face experience. So I just don't buy into that the face-to-face meeting is going away. If anything, I think it will increase.
Yeah.
And for me, online has given me the ability to stay in touch with family members. I come from a very large family in a ways that I haven't before. And then it just, because of that constant relationship building, it leads to I want to see them face to face.
Right. You want that reunion sooner.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too. One of the things that I think you've always said is that you can't at events today just be giving information that people can find online anyway, and I think that's for me that might be kind of the future of events, is that more and more of the education is delivered online, and hopefully more collaborative ways and more effective ways than it is today, but that the face-to-face time is really spent face-to-face, and much more focused on the relationship aspect of it than the educational part of it.
Yep, I totally agree. I think we'll see conferences, and some of them are already doing this, moving some of that information online before the conference. Mm. So if I'm going to speak somewhere, I may give a 2-minute or 3-minute or 5-minute lecture online way ahead, so that you see this content ahead of time, come to the conference, and then we sit down together face to face and debrief it.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see that flip model in the future a lot.
Yeah.
That takes intentionality. That's a lot different than scheduling speakers to just get up and deliver information, and it takes designing experiences.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you know, one of the things I think it would alleviate is, you know, I always, you know, there's a specific topic that the conference organizer wants us to talk about.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we'll deliver on that. But then you find out that the audience really needs something a little bit different that really doesn't meet the 3 learning objectives,
right.
You know, that you're supposed to be delivering on, and you know, perhaps there's a way to, like you say, you know, get people on the same page and you know, pre-load them with what they need to be able to focus on what that topic is.
Yep.
You know.
And I think there's people that will say, well, that's like giving them homework, or they're not going to do it before they arrive to the event. And I'm like, we've got to shift that paradigm. What would it take to get them to do it?
Yeah.
How can we incent them to do it? It only takes once when you walk into a session and the topic is, the speaker says, well, the topic started online. Did you watch the video? Well, we're starting here. And if you didn't watch the video, you're already behind us. It only takes once to where you go, I'm going to watch the video next time.
Right, right.
And there's that change management system that we have to work with.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks very much, Jeff. Jeff is, in you know, my view, one of the most influential people in the events industry.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look forward to spending more time with you and seeing you at a lot more events.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Jeff.
it.
Bye-bye.